You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Home Field Apparel.
And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another frustrated episode of the Assembly Call, as tonight your Indiana Hoosiers lost by a final score of 94-69 to Illinois at home. Drops the Hoosiers to 13-5 overall and 4-3 in the Big Ten. I'm your host, Andy Bottoms, here with Ryan Phillips. Jared may join us, and Coach may join us from Assembly Hall as well. And we're here to break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. This is a game that was bad from the start for IU. They fell behind by 30 points at one point in the first half. The very first possession for Illinois was an absolutely wide-open three-point shot for Yakachonis, and it would be about the same from there for the first half, as Illinois ended up with, I think, 17 second-chance points at halftime on 10 offensive rebounds. They hit 8 threes. They scored 1.54 points per possession in the first half, while IU scored just 0.87 points per possession in the first half. Didn't make a three, and really dug themselves a hole that they could not really climb out of, even when they got a little momentum at the beginning of the second half. There were plenty of boos, chance to fire Mike Woodson in Assembly Hall, it sounds like. I'll not get into the latter too much. The former, I don't really understand people booing Trey Galloway. Everybody's frustrated with the performance. It seemed like he was the recipient of a lot of the boos. Not sure I can talk myself into a thought process that condones that in any way, but doesn't change how frustrating this performance was in a game where two teams both coming off of disappointing losses for different reasons. One of them showed up to play, and one of them did not. And we'll start this show, which is difficult on a night like tonight, the way we start every show, and that is with our banner moment. And believe me, at halftime, I was already searching for what this was going to be. I guess luckily, to some extent, IU came out and scored the first 10 points of the second half. I think the lead got as low as 16, I want to say, at one point in the second half. Did think they played with much better energy to start the second half, and had they started the game with that, that certainly could have made a difference. And so they get those first 10 points. They still missed some opportunities in that opening stretch to cut even further into the lead, and maybe could have made it a game. But honestly, the performance in the first half was so poor that really anything that happened in the second half doesn't make a whole lot of difference. And until IU scored the last couple points of the game, Illinois had built the lead back up to what it was, and then some, got back up by 30 again in the second half. But banner moment on the back of some 4 straight free throws by Miles Rice, a jumper by Luke Goody. I think Goody had also hit some free throws, and a Galloway floater was those 10 points to start the half that gave at least a glimmer of hope. And that is as good as it gets for tonight's banner moment, I would say. Our banner moment today, as always, brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, now in their 8th season sponsoring the Assembly Call, and their 4th as the presenting sponsor for the Back Home Network. Home Field has the largest collection of vintage IU apparel that you will find anywhere. Since IU is their flagship school, more high-quality gear with unique IU logos from the past is always right around the corner, like the recent knit sweaters with the script Indiana University logo on them. It's not just IU stuff. They have over 180 schools on their site. They're refreshing things for these schools. They've rolled out a few, I think, each week as things have gone on here in the season. I believe I saw that there's a Dayton refresh happening on Friday, among others. So, lots of good stuff already there, and more coming each and every week. So they're really the perfect one-stop shop. If you need something for yourself, you need gifts to give to family and friends, anything you need, you can find at Home Field Apparel for great, comfortable gear. Make sure you check their socials, text alerts, and emails to find out what the latest promo code is. And you can go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23 to get 15% off your entire first order. Again, that's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. That website, again, is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. All right, now it's time to move the ball, find the open man, get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. Ryan offered to just rant for the entire show and give me the night off. I told him that I would not subject you, the listener, to that. or bow out in that way. But I'm sure lots to say, Ryan, as we kick off the show tonight.
Yeah. Look, I started this season off and I promised my co-hosts and myself that I would remain positive, and I would not wade into discussing coaching and things like that as we did last year. And we would wait till the end of the season to discuss that. But we are now coming off the worst 2-game stretch I can remember since my time of being an Indiana fan. Back-to-back 25-point losses with a roster that cost well over $5 million. And was supposed to be the roster that turned this around. The talent is there. 4 years ago, Mike Woodson was hired not to be better than Archie Miller, not to make the NCAA tournament. He was hired to bring a championship to Indiana. That is the standard that has been set by Indiana and its fans, is championship level basketball. He has not done that. We're now in the 4th season. We've seen what he is as a head coach. And last year, there were lots of excuses about the level of talent he had and the players he was missing and what he was missing. Went out, gave him the roster he asked for this year. And this is what we're getting. They were down 30 points at Assembly Hall, the real one, against Illinois. I mean, there's no words for that. There's no words for that. There were 2 games where they were utterly uncompetitive in the Big Ten. One on the road against an average team in Iowa, and one at home against Illinois. I don't know what's next here. And Indiana could limp into the tournament this year. They've got enough talent to certainly win enough games to sneak in. But we've seen where this is. When Mike Woodson was hired, he was hired to win games like this. A really good team comes to your home floor. You got the home crowd. And instead of them being raucous and cheering for you, you give them a performance that has them chanting for you to be fired. I mean, there's no coming back from that. And the problem is, the longer this goes on, the more interest in basketball you're going to lose. And I hate seeing this happen in my program. I hate seeing this happen. But if Indiana prides itself on its banners and being a championship level program, at some point, people have to start acting like this is supposed to be a championship level program. And that comes with accountability from the bottom to the top. And right now, and for a long time, Indiana has not acted like it deserves those banners or would earn another one. We're a long way from that. And so for this to just continue, we all know what the end result is going to be eventually. And it's just sad to see that they fall into this spot. And the season's not over. They could get into the tournament like they did in his first year. They could, whatever. But we've seen where the ceiling is. And it's not where fans expect it to be or what they're paying for. So it's just a sad night. I'm not angry. I'm just sad to see where this is and see how people feel. I'm not up on booing the players. I don't think that's right. But at the same time, like what are they supposed to do? They can't watch this anymore. It's hard to watch it, and we have to break it down, and we will. But I just think that we know where this is going, and the longer you delay it, the worse it's going to be.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of where you're at, where I don't think you could really be mad because you'd become resigned to the outcome of the game so early on. It was just kind of playing out the string, even watching it, just waiting for it to get over to some extent. I will, because I'm going to try to hold some of the larger stuff maybe until Coach gets on, just kind of what the vibe was there, and maybe attempt to talk a little bit about what went wrong in the game. Like I said, I don't know if there's a huge point in talking about much of anything that happened in the second half, but the first half, really, Illinois had, there's probably multiple points you could pick. I think it was with 7 minutes left, they had 45 points. And really from the jump, like I said in the opening, Yakuchunas gets a wide open three early on. They continue to put him in ball screen situations. Balo playing drop coverage, trying to figure out how to handle that. Ivisic, his ability to slip some of these screens and pop after this, pop out and hit threes was definitely a challenge to really pull Balo out on the floor. So that defensively is one thing. Illinois found matchups they liked, really drove guys. And then to compound that, IU just had no interest, it seemed, in blocking anybody out and securing defensive rebounds. And so even when they would get stops initially, the effort level to get on the boards and be able to shut down possessions and get the ball going back the other way was just incredibly poor. I mean, there's a play that Mbako is looking at the guy he's boxing out and not even looking at the rim to know where the ball is going to go, not even turn to block anybody out. Just, guys just not really going after the ball. I thought what was, a lot of things we can say are disappointing, just the general competitiveness and effort that was shown in the first half. They talked about that on the halftime show. Robbie Hummel touched on it. To me, more than missing threes, that lost them the game. That dug the hole of not looking like a team who had an interest in bouncing back from a really poor outing against Iowa. And that I recognize is not a question, Ryan, but that to me was what did it in the first half. And it showed up in lack of attentiveness on defense and particularly on the glass.
Yeah. I mean, the effort wasn't there. The focus wasn't there. The intensity wasn't there. None of it was there. I mean, nothing you want from a good basketball performance was there. And I just think it's, I think that it was almost like from the tip they were resigned, well, we're going to lose the game. And it's just, just playing out the string for the most part. And that's how it felt. And then there were bursts of a little bit of activity, start the second half because they probably got yelled at halftime, and here and there you saw little individual plays. But as a team, I mean, and it felt this way with about 9 minutes left against Iowa. It was just kind of all right, it's not going to end well for us. So let's just, kind of, everybody get through the game and we'll move on. And it's just, it's sad. Like I said, it's sad to watch because, some of these kids have shown great effort this year. And it just feels like, there's no focus on the details or fundamentals within the game. And then this is what happens. You get down early and then it's kind of well, the game's kind of over in the first time. They were down 52-22 at one point in the first half. I mean, you're not coming back at that point. Illinois too good for that. And so I don't know, man. It's just puzzling to watch because there is a lot of talent on that floor. And there's a lot of guys who do hustle and play and play hard and certainly have that ability, but it's almost like the team is infected with something that's not allowing them to do that. And it's contagious.
Yeah. What strikes me, and I listened to the show that you guys did on, I guess that was Saturday is when that was, but I don't know if it was you or Coach Moes. It was one of the three of you talked about just the level of accountability and watching guys do things and there being no real repercussion from it. And it was a clip of, it was that weird kind of scramble play where the ball ended up back toward half court and then it comes up and then, got knocked away multiple times. And I think it was Sam Vecini tweeted out, just Balo just kind of walking through the play. There were, Carlisle coming in, taking some of, continuing to take the kinds of poor shots that he's taken when he's come into some of these games lately. And I presume in the effort to try to get himself started offensively. And the slow starts again. I mean, the first half was a lot like the Iowa game, except that there was no run in the middle for IU to kind of come back in the game. But just from an effort standpoint and from a competitiveness standpoint defensively, it was very much like that. So to go and watch the same stuff and the same guys make the same mistakes over and over again that you've already seen. The defense has been an issue since the beginning of the season. They've not played well defensively.
The system just doesn't work
in a number of games.
Point.
And sometimes teams miss shots, and that's a part of the game, but I think that has papered over how poor the defense has been in key moments, and that's why they've gotten blown out in some of these games against the best 5 teams they've played are the ones who have destroyed them by now an average of 20-some points. The rebounding got better in a sense, but that had been an issue for a while as well. So it had gotten better. We'll admit that for a while, but it is watching the same things over and over. And
Yeah.
It just nothing seems to change at this point, and I don't really know what you do about that.
Well, I mean, let's dive into reality here. Some of these guys are making a decent chunk of money, and they're gonna play. I mean, and like that's what it boils down to. And again, I think there's some of that is like who you're replacing them with. Like the whole team is really struggling right now. What do you do? I mean, maybe you throw in you say Bryson Duggar's a freshman, send him out there to play more minutes, or do something along those lines. Fine, but like throw Langdon Hatton out there because he's showing some effort, or Anthony Leal gets more minutes. Like, I mean, you can do that, but I just think that there is a bottom line to it, that you've spent a lot of money on some of these guys, and you're going to have them out there to attempt to earn that paycheck, because certain donors have given this money and they expect a return on their investment. I mean, that's however sick it is to talk about that. That is the fact of life in college basketball right now. And that's why relying on the transfer portal and all that money. And look, again, reality of college basketball, this can be the fallout is you get a guy who, maybe not. I mean, Mackenzie Mbako's 1 for 10 tonight. And he's a guy who has immense talent, looked great early in the season, is in a big time slump right now. Maybe he gets it back, but he's going to play because he's that talented and he's making a good chunk of change. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I think somebody said in the chat, it's just hard to be mad anymore. This is what we are, and this is what Indiana is. And I think that's what we're all sad about. But yeah, there's no accountability. I mean, Cannon Carlisle has been taking bad shots for 6 games. He's still on the floor, and he's still getting decent minutes, and he's still doing the same thing. There's no accountability, and there's nobody taking guys off the floor when they do stuff. So, I mean, and I would say the no accountability thing goes from the top all the way down of that of the basketball program / that half of the athletic department. I mean, it's just there's nothing. No matter what happens, the same thing is going to be trotted out next week. Like, do we expect? It's clear the defensive system is not working. Give them 94 points to Illinois. It gave up 85 to Iowa. Is anything going to change before the next game? No. They're going to run the same system. Everyone knows how to beat it. And you're just going to hope that the other team misses shots, essentially. That's where we're at. And
I mean, hell, there was a possession they came out and tried to run zone, and I'm pretty sure it was Carlisle. Didn't realize they were running zone. And he was chasing somebody through as they go.
Yep.
Like, you can't even change the defense.
At this point, I'd rather have them run zone for the entire game, and I hate when my team
that would
zone.
require all the players to actually be playing a zone at the time, unfortunately.
Yeah, I want all 5. To be clear, I want all 5 guys.
Okay, I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
There's some kind of weird, not quite boxing one. I didn't know what was happening. So the other thing I'll say, I mean, this is I think it shows up in this game. What Illinois has become offensively, and you've seen Underwood evolve over the course of his time there. But if you look at the breakdown of Illinois' points, I'm going to attempt to do math on the fly, which is always dangerous, but they get 34 points in the paint. They get 23 points at the free throw line. That's 57. They hit 11 threes. That's 33 plus 57 is 90. They had 4 points that weren't in the lane, at the free throw line, or a three-pointer. IU, they get 26 points in the paint. They make 15 free throws. That's 41. They make 4 threes. That's 12. So that gets you 53, I think. So that's 16 points for IU that came outside of those areas. And the number of mid-range and or long-range 2-point shots that IU took, not, and missed. Like, if you go, somebody should go and pull the shot chart for this game. It is absolutely like a clear contrast in styles of college basketball. And they talked about it, and they I think it was Rice took a floater, maybe it was Galloway, and they go, that's the shot that Illinois they're playing drop coverage. That's the shot they want you to take.
They want you to take it. And there's no Jalen Hood-Schifino on this team that consistently makes those.
Yeah, and there were Rice hit a couple, and I think Galloway hit one, and Goody hit I think he hit 3 mid-range jump shots. But like, that's what I use living and dying on right now. Carlisle's shots were almost all there. Mbako took a bunch of those. And even Balo took one from like the free throw line.
And this is the thing. We've been saying this is the 4th year we've been saying this now. It's wildly inefficient. It's a 3 or you get to the lane. Like that's modern basketball now. And it's wildly inefficient to shoot a long 2. And it's a huge part of Indiana's offense and continues to be so. And you saw it tonight. I mean, that's just, it's like taking you're walking into exactly what the defense wants you to take. And willingly.
Yeah, and what was interesting, Robbie Hummel mentioned this, like that they started to get the ball inside a little bit more as the half went on. I thought they tried to put him in some pick and roll scenarios early in the game, and they didn't have success, and then they just kind of went away from it and never really, gave him the ball posting up inside. Like, again, I'm not trying to sit here and talk out of both sides of my mouth and be like, oh, they should shoot, threes and drive to the basket, and then I want somebody to throw it into the post. But like there was an advantage that IU had. They really didn't take advantage of. He ends up with putting up, decent numbers as he got that. They were able to get him some lobs going to the basket. They got Ivisic in foul trouble a little bit. It just was kind of unclear what exactly they were trying to do, at least to my eye, early on. And Illinois was daring Galloway the whole night to shoot threes.
Yeah.
I mean, and when we say they went under screens, like they went way under screens.
It was they
went to the free throw line. They went to the free throw line. And anyway, so I think those are, to me, the overall philosophy of what they're trying to do, that was there. Just I'm gonna throw a couple, producer Eddie doing yeoman's work from Utah for us, putting some of Woodson's, post game quotes. I guess he skipped the Don Fisher post game.
Yeah,
and
it's the first time he's done that, by the way. Skip the post game talk with.
Yeah,
Fish.
So he just said, long season, man. You can't throw in the towel. We didn't play well in the first half. We were awful. Says IU played better in the second half, but the damage had already been done. I mean, I'm not. I guess they played better in the second half, but you only outscored them by
what, though?
Yeah, outscored them by 3, and that was late threes. But so I don't know. I don't know if there's too much else to talk about with the game. And I know, as Ryan said, our goal, as we talked about how we wanted to approach the season, was not to make every game a referendum on the program and the staff and all of that stuff that I think things turned into last year. It's a struggle a little bit to stay away from that, quite honestly, given the overall performance of the last couple games.
Yeah.
So I did want to at least try to hit on some of the basketball, and we can do that in meaningful moments and some of the stats as well. But anything else before we take our first break?
I want to reiterate what you said, and I think that we need to not make every game that. I think this is a particularly horrible stretch, and we would be doing a disservice to our audience not to mention the elephant in the room with that. And I think that moving forward, I don't think people should expect this every show. We're not going to do this, but I think that it's just abundantly clear the last 2 games what this program is right now, despite paying for all of this talent. And I think that, it's embarrassing for everybody involved. And honestly, I feel bad for a lot of the people involved. What I'll say too is, this is what it is for now. I would hope that there are better days to come, but it is what it is right now. And we have to kind of sift through it, and we have to come on after games and break it down. And so we're going to try and do our best at that. But just know that, this is where we're at right now, and we all have to deal with it until something different happens, whether it's with this team or in the end of the year or whatever. Yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah, and I think just to try to put a bow on that, and then I really will take a break. I won't just keep talking about it. I think a couple things you look at, and Illinois is a good example of one of these things, right? Like I think they mentioned this on the broadcast. They have one guy back from a year ago, and even he is not really playing a major role in there. Most of the guys who got minutes for them are guys who were not there. Gibbs Lawhorn is really the only guy who played any meaningful minutes for them a year ago, and he had 12 points. He had a nice game off the bench, but. And you see this all over the country of people being able to integrate these different pieces and be able to be successful. And to your point, talent, everybody said coming into the season, this is not talent is not going to be the issue, all those things. This team has not gelled in the way that they needed to. And the Renew injury is certainly a challenge as one of your best players being out. But he would not have made a difference. I mean, he would have made a difference. He would have not caused IU to win this game had he been there. And so I think you look around the landscape of college basketball and see that frustrating, hard to put into it. And then you look at what the minimum expectations were heading into the season. And I think this has come up on a variety of IU podcasts and conversations, right? The expectation was not to just get back to the tournament. And even that, at this point, IU, I think in a lot of people's bracketology was maybe a last team in, first few teams out type of scenario heading into today. So they're not completely off the radar. And as Robbie Hummel said on the game, they got 9 or 10, quad one opportunities remaining. But they're going to need to perform really well in those to do more than just limp into the tournament. And that was not even close to what the expectation was at the beginning of the season. And I think even as we looked at expectations and probably tried to temper those to some extent, like getting to the second weekend, given the talent on the team, competing for a Big Ten championship, given the talent on the team, felt like minimum expectations.
Yes, I would agree.
And what has shown up in the 5 toughest games that they've played, that they've lost by over 100 points total, like they're so far from that right now, and it doesn't mean that they can't get there. I mean, the talent that we believed would make those things possible is still there.
Yeah.
But it feels so far away in a game like this against a team who had even more new pieces that weren't nearly as highly regarded. And I give Underwood a lot of credit. I mean, much has been talked about. I'll play coach here for a second as he's on here, but like he completely has changed up his defensive scheme since he came into the league. He's changed offensively multiple times as he's gone through different things. The Kofi Coburns, that like he's changed and adapted and made it work. And we're going to have to see that from Mike Woodson down the stretch of the season if this thing is going to turn around in any meaningful way.
Underwood is a great coach, and he's done what great coaches do, and that's they make the system fit the players, and they make the players better. It's that simple, and he's done a great job at Illinois. He is an excellent head coach, and you're seeing it with this team that he has. Like you said, one player back, really, and you're seeing it. You're seeing what he can do.
Yep. All right, well, with that, we'll take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to continue to break down IU's 94-69 loss. We'll point out some meaningful moments you might have missed, and then we'll go inside the numbers to look at the most important statistical notes from the game. You're listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
Hey, this is Max Bielfeldt, Big Ten champ and Advertised Sixth Man of the Year in 2016. And speaking of better than advertised, join Jared, Andy, Ryan, and Coach on the Assembly Call after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
All right, welcome back to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Andy Bottoms here with Ryan Phillips, and we are breaking down IU's 94-69 loss to Illinois. It's now time for today's meaningful moment you might have missed.
Meaningful moments that you might have missed.
Do a better job on the read this time. This segment is brought to you by our friends at Hoosier Ticket Project, where they help individuals and families experience Indiana University athletic events in person for the first time through the generosity of alumni and fans. To learn more about how you can donate money or extra tickets to help create meaningful moments for other IU fans, visit HoosierTicketProject.org. Again, that's HoosierTicketProject.org. All right, so that was my meaningful moment that I did not miss the ad read this time for that. So that was
It's smooth as butter, buddy.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. So as we look at meaningful moments tonight, always kind of hard to look at this because there's probably lots of moments that people probably want to have missed from a game like this, unfortunately. I'm going to circle back to something else you guys said. I think it was you and Coach Moes, although I hate to give you praise because I felt like Coach was doing it during the show, which I kind of bristled at as I was listening. But you guys talked about the whole kind of getting punched in the mouth and how teams respond, and what I thought was interesting, like early, I think first possession of the game, Luke Goody dives and keeps a ball alive. Gets on the floor. I think IU ends up scoring afterward. That was really like all kind of based on a hustle play. Rice misses a shot, basically gets his rebound on the ground, calls timeout, saves a possession. I think they get end up getting a basket after that. Like that stuff was there for a little bit, and when things started to unravel at other points, it just completely snowballed. That's where the communication stops defensively. That's where people stop making those hustle plays. Like we talk about, that one, the same thing that Sam Vecini posted about Balo just kind of walking through this play and different things like that. And even, I think maybe it was in the midst of the 10-0 run, the basket that Illinois got to break it was just IU had kind of changed how they were guarding inside, doubling a little bit. Luke Goody gets caught ball watching, guy cuts right down the middle of the lane and gets a dunk. It just is the sustained effort and focus that you see at times that just goes away at the snap of a finger, and they just can't get it back from that point. I'm sure there's tons of other little moments like that, but to me, it wasn't that there was no fight. There was fight at the beginning. There was the attempt to do that, and then it just is gone. And they relaxed even the slightest bit when things start to go well, and just lose any grip on the game from there.
Yeah, and we've kind of seen that with this program for a while. It's things are going well, and you just can't sustain it. They don't handle success well, and it's almost like, okay, we made a 10-0 run, we're good, And it's like, no, you fought and clawed to make that run. You got to keep fighting. Like you've got the other team on the heels, and you're pushing back, and you're finally. But it's I don't know. It's two things. You said it best. It's effort and focus, and it's sometimes it's one or the other. Sometimes the effort's there. They're just not focused and watching and paying attention to the right things and watching. Being in the right, like recognizing where they're supposed to be and all of that. And you can run around full speed all you want. If you're in the wrong place, it doesn't matter. If you lose sight of what you're supposed to be doing, it doesn't matter how much effort you're giving. And so you need to have both. And it's just like, you can know where you're going to be, but if you're a step slow because you're not putting in effort, it's almost, doesn't matter that you know what you're supposed to be doing. And so I just think that the focus and effort, it's such a basic thing. And yeah, you lose it at times. Sometimes you lose it, but the consistency of not having it, we mention it like it's one of those things. It's a baseline thing, being focused and having energy on the court for a basketball player and a basketball team. Let's call them out collectively. That should be the baseline. The minute you step on the floor are those two things. Forget talent. If you have you can have all the talent in the world. If you don't have those two things, you're losing. But it's with this team, and this isn't the only one. This has been going on for a long time. We call it out when it's like, hey, they were focused and showed good energy, where it's like that should be taken for granted. And it's not. And it wasn't tonight. And yeah, that's a great call out, Andy. That first basket, after that run was just a guy. I mean, it was the easiest basket of the night, right down the middle, just lay it up, nobody there. And it's just like losing your guy off leaving a dead eye 3-point shooter wide open. And I know the system has them playing off and over helping and all that. And we've talked about that ad nauseum for years, but like just leaving a 3-point shooter open when you're not that far from him and letting him get the shot off. It's the same thing. And you see that all the time. And it's not acceptable. And like we said, there's no accountability.
Yeah, the other moment I'll call out, this is a little bit piggybacks on what you said, just in terms of like calling things out that you feel like should be basic. I thought Leal had a couple really good blockouts in the midst of guys really not blocking out, leading to all those offensive rebounds. I did think he kind of hooked Jakob Jonas on the one that ended up getting called for a foul in the second half, but that's just a crafty veteran play, you'd say. But there were a couple where he really made an effort to do that, and I think those little things are important. And I use that kind of as a way to the quote from Leal after the game. I don't think we carry on like normal. Things need to be addressed with one another. We have to lock in and understand how embarrassing this is. Like, and I think, Goody had some comments after the game as well. It talked about, don't think Bala reacted in the right way. Makes us look bad as a program. Adds he appreciates Bala and Rice sticking up for him, but says that's not how we represent the Indiana program. And then talking about Goody on the crowd, I understand it about the booing. I understand it. We got embarrassed. We have to wear this jersey with more pride. This program is too historical and great to play like that.
That says it.
And he did say afterward, to those who are booing and so negative on social media, don't switch sides when we get this thing turned around.
Sorry, Luke. I mean, that's, I understand the sentiment, but people have a right to be upset. I mean, they do. And I agree. I don't think the players should be booing, or the people should be booing players. I don't think you should be nasty to players on social media. Do not at players ever. They're doing their best and within, the confines of what they're being given. So lay off them. This is about the leadership. This is about leadership. And that's what's going on here. And so I understand his sentiment. He's emotional after a loss and that, but your fans are your fans. And if you lose them because of these performances, you got to work hard to get them back. You shouldn't be telling them not to come back. You want them back. Trust me, Luke, you want them back. So, again, he's an emotional kid after a really bad loss that was pretty embarrassing. And I understand that, but
yeah, I think a difficult situation for him in general. You could tell just some of the plays he made. I think he got that one, I think it was him who got called for that flagrant on the made three where he got, kind of got his elbow up, not really intentionally. The play on Ivisic to spark that little scuffle was like just going into him really hard to try to block out, giving him a little bit extra in that scenario. I think a really frustrating game for him to be in the position that he was in. I don't think that, so I think the emotion that you talk about is important there with him. But all right, well, Coach, it looks like he is live from Assembly Hall. So, Coach, we won't keep you too long. I know you got to drive back, although it seemed like the crowd cleared out well enough that traffic probably not an issue leaving the arena for you this evening. But I guess I guess to start, since you were there, we obviously heard about some of the booing and the Fire Woodson chants and some of that stuff. Like, what was your I guess just kind of describe the scene from your perspective as the fans handled this performance.
Yeah, I got a couple words. Can you guys hear me? Everything plugged in and good? Okay.
Sound great as always.
Thank you. It was feisty. It was a feisty arena. I've never been in Assembly Hall and witnessed what I witnessed tonight. From the start with some missed threes and the booing and that is sad and it's tough. I get it. We're all frustrated. But it was out of control, mostly the students, but at halftime it was the crowd in its entirety was very, very disgusted with the play, and rightfully so. And feisty is the word, and then the second word I've already used too is sad. This is a storied program that, a lot of us have grown up with or come to know, and to see that type of performance tonight in back-to-back games, it's just tough. But this was the toughest crowd that I've seen in a long time. A lot of people left at halftime. The 7-minute timeout, which is just something to experience, and even in tough games and would motivate teams when they were down. Like, the people who were here weren't super interested in the performance of that, participating, I mean. And so, the crowd was on edge tonight, and I've never seen it. Never seen it, and I'm not happy that it's happening by any means, but it's definitely a negative vibe down here.
Yeah, Coach, we were talking. We said I said it's the worst 2-game stretch that I can remember for the program. When all things considered, I mean, Crean's first year where they were using walk-ons, it was expected that they were going to get hammered a lot. This is different, right. And I the negativities. I think people kind of rallied around that team and cheered them on, whereas this feels very negative. And I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
Well, I mean, it's 2 games in a row where you get beat by 25, and the fan base was already on edge. The 5-game winning streak was nice and gave hope. But I think that the fan base was, on its way to having been turned anyway. And then you have 2 performances like this. I urge people to be careful how they take their negativity out. I didn't like, Galloway's given this program a lot, and yeah, he's not playing well, and the booing of individual players. And I get it. It's a new era. They're getting paid, which is like pro basketball. I'm an old guy, so I think the players should be free from all of that and put that on the administration, as I heard you say when I was coming on, Ryan. I don't like that. I didn't like being here tonight. It wasn't Indiana basketball.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad at the fans. I understand that. But Indiana basketball in the Big Ten is just a crazy, wild atmosphere, even in losses. And tonight it was very, very negative.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Coach, I think you went to I'm assuming you went to the post-game press conference.
I went to Illinois.
Okay.
Post-game.
That's
So
not
I
surprising.
No. And
Oh,
I know
glad
I'll catch
that
some grief
restraining
from that.
order was lifted. So
Yeah.
glad you could go.
No. But
Coach loves him some Coach Underwood.
I must have missed something then, right? As you guys were talking when I came in?
Not necessarily. They had, we had a few quotes from Woodson there about it, and some stuff from the players. I was just kind of curious to get your input on that. I guess since you did go to the Illinois one, I mean, what was obviously the tone was great there. I have no doubt. But did he talk about anything specific that they saw that they felt like they could exploit with IU defensively?
Yeah, it's a lot more X's and O's when you win by that margin, right? You can tell.
Well, you can tell everybody how
what
smart you
did.
are based on what your game plan was. Absolutely.
But it goes back to some of the systematic problems that we've talked about. They lost their last game. They didn't play very well, so they were very much curious and excited about getting back into this game and playing Illinois basketball. That was a big theme of the press conference. But then he said he's going to take away threes. He wasn't going to let Goody and Mbako score threes, and he's going to give up twos. And it goes right back to, Izzo does that. Underwood does that. A lot of coaches now want contested twos and protect the rim and guard the three-point line. And right away, early, they took away those threes. That's the basketball part of tonight, if that even needs to be discussed. But he was happy that he kept saying who we are. And I think that is part of our post-game talk, too, is Indiana has not had an identity, and it has not established an identity. Illinois has had really good years, had really bad years. They have an identity. This basketball program in Indiana needs an identity. So, again, I don't want to talk too much about Illinois, but it's just what leadership is. And when you have a bad day, you respond by having a good game. They were a lot better with that point guard. Wow, he was good tonight, especially in the first half. And, there's just coaches when I go, and Ryan, you know this too, and Andy, when you watch postgame, they're just coaches that you can listen to and that they have a handle on everything that's going on. And then there are other coaches where, it's like, wow, did you see the same game that most of us? And I know they have more experience and they're in the practice and all that caveats that we throw out all the time. But they came in here with a purpose tonight, and they got their star back, and they did what Ryan and Bob Moes said the other day. They threw punches, and they shot three-point shots. And when those are going in, Indiana has a struggle. And you had a coach who strategized against that and used a good strategy to beat Indiana.
Yeah, what's interesting about that, Coach, is they only went 3 of 13 from 3 in the second half. It wasn't like they were just bombing away the entire game. They did enough work in the first half where it didn't matter. But, even despite that, they still scored 34 points. They still attacked. They still found ways to beat Indiana without all those threes going in. They shot 23% second half. And, it's a well-coached team that plays a smart brand of basketball. And that was the result.
And has 10 new players.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, he's just good. Underwood is a very good coach and deserves his credit.
Yeah, I did my best to fill in for you and really praised Underwood earlier. So I hopefully I did you proud when you listened back.
Well, thank you.
So let's I guess we'll kind of transition to stats, and maybe this is opportunity, Coach, to get some of your thoughts on the game itself. I touched on a few of them, just some of the point distribution. type things. IU ends up 4 of 18 from 3. Missed their first 13, then I think hit 3 in a row. Before that, the rebounding we talked about a lot. It got better, I guess. Illinois only had 2 second chance points in the second half, ended up 16 offensive rebounds to 8 for IU, but overall rebounding 51 to 37. IU had 11 turnovers. Illinois only had 6. And IU with 11 turnovers and 14 assists versus Illinois' 14 assists and 6 turnovers. Just not a lot of great, as you would expect in a game like this. There's not a lot of numbers that look good for IU. But, Coach, any numbers you want to hit on to maybe underscore something that you saw or noticed in particular at the game?
Well, I mean, the 12-8 run, you don't guard Jack Kachunas. You go under screens or you get caught in screens and don't fight through screens. And you let a guy who's been out of the, not played for 2 nights, get a good look at the rim. And, boy, then he just exploded. But then between the first TV timeout and the second TV timeout is about 5 minutes, is a longer stretch. They had 11 second chance points in one segment of play. And we were talking about that up in our seats. I was with Josh Pose, and we were talking, like, that's huge. So Illinois got off to a good start, and then all of a sudden the effort stuff, Illinois won the effort battle, especially with the offensive rebounds. And now all of a sudden you're not just a 4 or 5 point lead, it's now double digits. And again, you took one, that was one of those punches. And then some of those 3-pointers went in on those offensive rebounds and punches, and then it was stopped. It was over. And they found a little bit of fight in the second half, and had a great effort there at 2:25 or something when there was a little dust up. But other than that there wasn't much effort tonight from the Hoosiers. But that tells a lot. When you give up 11 second chance points in one 4 or 5 minute segment, you're not ready to play.
Yeah,
No.
in that segment, Illinois outscored IU 15-4. By my count for that. 11 of the 15 points are, second, third chances as you get through there. Ryan, any numbers to call out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the numbers for Indiana, the fact that they lost this badly, only had 11 turnovers is shocking. But you look at some of the shooting numbers, and Mbaka 1 of 10, Galloway 3 of 11, Carlisle 1 of 6, Miles Rice was 4 of 10, which is terrible. But the thing for me is we've talked about the shot selection, and you can see it in the numbers that the shot selection is causing those percentages and those misses. And you take good shots, there are nights where you will just miss everything. But in general, if you take good shots, good things will happen, especially when you have talent. And they're not taking good shots. They haven't taken good shots for a while, and some individual players have not been taking them for a long time. And you've got guys on some bad streaks. Cannon Carlisle, Kenzie Mbaka are on bad streaks. Galloway, that's 2 games in a row where he's kind of struggled with it. I think that's a big part of what's going on is one team took good shots tonight. The other did not. And one team won by 25 points.
Ryan, you know this as being the shot doctor. It looks to me, and you see it live a little bit more than you see it on television, like they're not catching ready to shoot.
No.
They're catching ready to drive or catching ready to look to see to feed the post.
Pass.
Tonight, I can really tell what the emphasis was in this program. It is feed the post or come off a ball screen and attack the lane and take floaters. It is
and
not
here's the thing.
on taking threes. Threes are just a byproduct. And I know we beat that dead horse all the time, but when you're down here and you're seeing Illinois, they're thinking I'm shooting as soon as they catch until someone takes them off the shot. Right, and what did they take? 27, 28 threes or something like that?
32
tonight.
I think.
32 threes tonight. It's a slight difference that you can see live if you start looking for it. But Galloway, I thought, passed up shots in rhythm because he was catching and then pointing down to get a ball screen, or catching and pass faking to look into the post. And so when they're not ready and then they shoot, that quarter second or half second can make a shot short.
You're questioning
it. Can make it off. One. Yeah, there is a little bit of hesitation in good shooters' minds. It doesn't matter how good your technique is. If you're emphasized, get the ball inside or drive and make a play. I'm not in, again, caveat, but it just seems like that, and that's why we have some cold shooting nights. When they're catching in rhythm off fast break and they catch with the mindset of I'm scoring right away, the ball seems to go in a lot better. And tonight they were
Certainly
very
looks
hesitant
better.
early. Yeah,
Yeah, and
they were hesitant.
Here's the thing. You're absolutely right, and we talked about this last year too. Is that the focus was all give it to the post, give that even with Trace, and you could justify it with Trace. He was an All-American, so the feed him, and Trace was real good at passing out of the post. So sometimes you get opportunities off of that or in pick and roll. But tonight, you're right. That was the focus. But they didn't even get Ballo going for 7 minutes. I mean, they never got the ball to him. And so if that is your focus and you're not accomplishing it, that means the other team is defending it and overplaying it. So that should lead to opportunities for other people, which they did not take advantage of. Or you're not doing the right things to get him the ball. But it is everything is emphasized going forward to the basket and not shooting. And you need to catch it's the old, I mean, you learned it in elementary school, the triple threat position. When you catch the ball, you're ready to do either shoot, pass, or drive immediately every time you catch the ball. And shoot is not part of that equation for Indiana. It really isn't, except for a few guys. But that you're right, that one hesitation gets you thinking about it. And you're not, and if you're hesitating, you're not thinking this shot is going in. You're thinking, should I shoot it? And then you're shooting it. And you should never, a good shooter never questions taking a shot until after the game in film where you take too many.
Right.
Yeah, Coach, Ryan brought this up. We talked about this earlier with Ballo. Really struggled to get him involved. He made a tip in early to make it 6-5 IU for one of their only leads of the game. And then he doesn't score again. Really didn't take a shot again, I don't think, until about 9 minutes left. And he scored 8 points the latter part of the first half. What did you see in terms of what they were trying to do to get him involved that wasn't working? Or it seemed to me like they were trying to get him in ball screens early on and it wasn't there, and then they just went away from it in total. Eventually tried a couple like more straight post-ups, but seemed like they tried really early and then just got away from it. So what was your read on that being there in terms of why it was such a struggle to get him involved?
I think that's a great observation. They ran a lot of middle ball screens and side ball screens and kept the ball on the perimeter and wanted to attack that way. I don't know what they saw in that. They would post Ballo up in transition where he kind of holds the guy who's fronting him, and they got him the ball once or twice in transition when they did get a stop, and he ran the floor. But, yeah, they tried a little of that Chicago action where you hand off at the elbow and the guard curls and then you roll to the rim. And the thing is with Illinois, they don't mind you taking twos. So early on, Rice was getting shots. He was getting floaters. He was getting that because they're staying out on the three-point. They don't want the ball thrown back, either in a European right straight back or that throwback on the weak side. They didn't tag super well. So, that gives – they basically say, Miles Rice, take 25 shots today at the rim if we can get over the screen and do that. And that took Ballo out of it because the shots were there. And I don't think Rice took bad shots. I'm not saying they're bad, but sometimes the defense, without some creativity, fellas, and the defense dictates who shoots, that player better have a game. Because if he's not having a game and you're taking away 3 or 4 other players defensively and you don't scheme – They've only ran a staggered once, a play for Mbako. They went to a wide curl pin down for Tucker so he could get pull-up twos, and he hits. But other than that, they didn't run much for Ballo. They couldn't get that rim run lob action that we've been seeing, and he has to get his points in transition and rebounding that way.
All right, we're going to take our break here, and then Jared has joined us. So we come back in the assembly call. We're going to hand out our game balls, a Hoosier Hustle Award, and discuss a lingering question or two, and then we can look ahead to IU's upcoming opponent, who is currently getting also crushed at halftime tonight based on the score that I just saw. That's all next here on the assembly call. Stick with us. All right. And
that was a break.
Well, and there it was. Welcome back to the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. I'm Andy Bottoms here with a full panel now of Ryan Phillips, the coach Brian Tonsoni, and Jared has joined us as well. For what reason, God only knows. At this point, you almost missed the whole thing. I'm not sure what you're doing, but surely Surely you have better things to do, but we're here to finish talking about IU's 94-69 loss to Illinois. It's now time for our game balls, which are presented by our friends Allie and James at Bloom Environmental. They want to help you protect your home's air quality, and the best way to do that is to stop water at the source. They were voted the best of B-Town in basement services for 4 years running, and their basement waterproofing and crawl space encapsulation is the best defense your home can have against mold growth and structural damage. Mention Assembly Call and get 10% off your system. Call today for a free estimate, or if you just want to hear, as Coach said, you could hear Allie talk about anything if you call. Probably don't want to discuss this game with her or likely anyone, to be fair, but make sure you check them out at bloomenviro.com. All right, we reached the point of these. Well, I guess. Well, let's do the game balls and the Hoosier Hustle, and then we'll handle the lingering question. That's probably a better entry point, Jared, than this.
Mute him.
This is always certainly. Well, you said in the text you didn't get to watch as much as a ton of the game, so I'll leave it up to you as to whether you want to vote on these awards. But we've definitely reached the point where everyone is like, what the hell are you doing? No one should get anything after this game, but we're going to do it anyway. All right, game balls. Ryan, who gets yours?
I'm going to go for Miles Rice for standing up for Luke Goody in that exchange without hesitation. He also had 12 points and 3 rebounds and 2 assists. Did have 5 turnovers, but of the starters, he only had a -4. So, that's not too bad. But
you lose by 25. That ain't bad, I guess.
That ain't bad. That's actually pretty
speaking.
good. Pretty good. No, I think that, jumping in to stand up for your teammate in a situation like that, I don't love shoving. I don't like whatever, but his instinct was to stand up for Luke Goody. So I respected that move.
Coach?
This sucks.
All right, Jared.
It's no. I'm gonna go Anthony Leal. He fights and he plays hard, and I don't know how great his stat line was tonight. We gave him for 3 points the other night, 6 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Makes some good passes. I didn't like it, to be honest with you, when he misses a shot and then gets subbed out. That's frustrating to me. Because I think that young man in the last 2 25-point blowouts has given Indiana basketball everything that Anthony Leal has. And so he gets my game ball.
All right. Jared, you have thoughts on this, or do you want me to skip you?
We won the second half. Why the long faces, guys? I guess I must have missed.
Jared, we didn't win much of anything tonight.
We're going to need to cut your mic if that's going to be the first comment you make coming on here after this. We got real problems.
No. Here's what I will say. I got to watch a little bit of the first half. I missed most of the second half while I was getting my kids to bed, so I got to get caught up. I know I saw you text something about a scuffle. I didn't even see any of that, so I got to get caught up on that. The only thing I will say, I will give a game ball. I saw there were videos at halftime of fans leaving and all of that stuff, and I saw that there was booing in the first half. We've always been against that inside of Assembly Hall. I'll give my game ball to fans that stayed for the second half and tried their best to cheer on the team, because I feel like obviously we come on the show and sometimes we're critical and we have our comments. I feel like when you're there inside of Assembly Hall with the team, if you're going to be there at the game, you should do what you can to support the guys. And so I guess if you can't say anything constructive and positive, then maybe leaving is the best thing for you to do. But for those who stuck around and tried their best, I'll give a game ball to those fans, because I think if you're there, that's what you should do. But that's just my feeling on it.
So Jared gets around what we all wanted to do, is not give a game ball. So we all struggle to find a player to give a game ball to, and then Jared gives them to the fans. That's probably where we should go.
Yeah, Jared, I was going to say.
I also didn't really see much of the game, so I can't really.
Jared, I was going to say there weren't too many of them who stuck around. You can just name them by name them. It's Bob from Kokomo.
And honestly, though, it was just like what I did see of the first half and what Coach was texting, because I was watching most of it with the audio off and just kind of texting about how dead it felt. And they're like, it was just sad, man. It's just so sad to see that, like, this once proud program that just, what was that in there in Assembly Hall? Like, that's just not. It's not our Indiana basketball, but it's what Indiana basketball is right now. and it's really hard for me to wrap my mind around it, which I know is how a lot of people are feeling. So anyway,
yeah, I'm gonna go with Rice.
After all that,
after all that, I mean, a compelling argument. Somebody did put in the chat that
simplest
Jared
of the
waltzes in
foods.
here and changes the rules to suit his own purposes, which I did think was amusing. But I'm going to say Rice. I did, kind of appreciate the way he stood up for Goody. I thought, really didn't have the turnovers. I think sometimes just again kind of going too fast, trying to do too much. But I thought, on balance, he was decent, which tonight is perhaps enough to get the game ball. So we'll give it to Miles Rice. That is his 7th of the season I'm counting here. Wow. And now it's time for the Hoosier Hustle Award, sponsored by our friends at Evansville Security Services.
Hi, this is Anthony Leal, reminding you to check out our friends at Evansville Security Services. Based in the hometown of IU legend Calvert Chaney, Evansville Security Services has been providing off-duty police officers to businesses and individuals since 2001. In other words, they're in the business of prevention and peace of mind. And remember, prevention cannot be measured. To learn more about how Evansville Security Services can help you preserve your peace of mind by preventing bad outcomes, visit EvansvilleSecurityServices.com. That's EvansvilleSecurityServices.com.
Thought for a second there that I was going to have to do my own instrumental there for the ad read, but Eddie came through, so I appreciate it.
Easy.
Hey, I'm just giving you a hard time. Yeah, like I said, you're doing this from a whole different state for reasons I really can't fathom. So no, we appreciate it. And nobody wanted to hear me do that anyway. So, all right, Hoosier Hustle Award. I'll go first. I'm going to give mine to Anthony Leal. I think for the reasons, Coach, that you said. I thought he fought hard. As I mentioned, the couple blockouts, the crafty veteran move to hook Yakachunas just enough to get him called for the foul, but not the other way around. So I thought he continued to do some solid things. 2 assists, no turnovers. As you mentioned, I think the more minutes he plays, the better in a lot of ways for this team. Hit a 3 at the end, got to the free throw line a couple times. So I'll give mine to Anthony Leal. Ryan, what about you?
Seconded, Anthony Leal. That and a killer ad read. So he gets it.
Absolutely. All right. Coach, I know you picked Leal for the other one, so putting you in a bind here. But if there's anybody else you want to highlight,
I'm picking Leal for this one, and I'm giving a second to both of my boys. Since Jared can change the rules, I'm changing the rules too. Brandon and Brent for outstanding texting tonight. I cannot share what they text. I did send it to you guys just now in a texting, but they gave me some suggestions on chants that I should do from Media Row, which I couldn't follow, but it brought a smile to my face, so thanks, boys. You might have to call me on this ride home here tonight because I might be very, very depressed. But Anthony Leal, second to Brandon and Brent for outstanding texting to their father.
And good for you to have the discretion to not do that, so that you would, so that you prevented being asked to never return in this capacity. So, good on you. All right. So with that, we'll get to the lingering question.
Do I not get to give a hustle award?
I mean, do you want to? I mean,
yes,
I
would like to give. Yes,
oh boy,
I would like to
go.
give the Hoosier Hustle Award to Don Fisher for doing the post game without Mike Woodson coming there. At least that I got several texts that Mike Woodson did not show up for his post game interview. So
he did not.
Wrong.
Yeah, he did the regular post game presser, but he didn't do the.
Okay, radio. So Hoosier Hustle Award to Don Fisher for somehow dealing with the whiplash of Indiana football being in the college football playoff and Indiana basketball being down by 28 at home at halftime in a Big Ten game.
All right.
Always hustling, Don Fisher.
Fair enough. So, obviously the lingering question is where do we go from here? It looks like by all accounts, Ohio State, I think they're down 17 to Wisconsin at halftime. The last that I looked, updated score, they are down by just 12 on the road at the Kohl Center now with about 12 minutes left in the game. Seems like in all likelihood they will be coming off of a defeat as well. IU did not respond to the Iowa defeat tonight, so the question kind of becomes, where do you go from here and what do you expect? So Jared, I know I had you come on, you hopped on and then we just kind of proceeded with where we were in the show, but feel free to use this lingering question as the opportunity to give your thoughts about where things are and kind of where your head's at as we look ahead to the next game.
Yeah, I texted you guys right before this game started the screenshot from the ESPN Gamecast of the game that showed that we were 5.5-point underdogs at home with Illinois having their best player questionable. That's kind of where we were entering the game, which just seeing Indiana as underdog at Assembly Hall is always kind of jarring. And then to actually see how the game played out is even more jarring. But what's really disappointing and what is the real reality check here is, like being down 28 at home at halftime in a game like that kind of felt like a new low. But, I went back and looked through the numbers. This program has been underperforming year after year after year. Like, do you guys realize we started the show in the 2011-2012 season? I think that year Indiana was preseason number 50 in KenPom and finished number 9. Since that season, we have overperformed our KenPom preseason projection one time. And that was 2016, and we were preseason 13th, and we finished 11th. There were 2 seasons, 2013 and 2020, when we finished exactly at our ranking. In 2020, we were preseason 34, we finished 34. 2013, we were preseason number 3, finished 3. Okay, fine. Those are decent. The one season was great. One season was decent. The other 10 seasons, we've underperformed by an average of 20-some spots. That's what Indiana basketball is right now. Consistently underperforming, mostly modest expectations. And today, again, the expectations coming in, the general expectation is we're going to lose a home game by 5.5 points. And we underperformed that by
quite a bit,
22 points. So tonight was actually a microcosm of what Indiana basketball has become. And we all grew up with Indiana basketball. We're here doing the show because we created an emotional bond with Indiana basketball when it was something different. And that program is just gone right now. It just is. That what I saw in the brief time I watched today was just nothing like that. And, sorry that's, obviously not a real uplifting message here. But, this was just yet another reality check of where we are. And, so what are we going to do against Ohio State on Friday? I have no idea. But it just feels, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I guess that's the next step. Can we bounce back? Can we take one game? The season obviously isn't over. Like, we can bounce back from this, and win games and get things turned around. But it just feels like there's such deeper systemic issues, even beyond just the coach and the result of tonight. I don't know. It kind of felt like it all was summed up in that first half of play. And that's a really depressing thought about the program that we all love.
Yeah, Coach, I know you got to get out of there soon, so I'll go ahead and if you want to do your last call as they're cleaning up behind you. I don't want them to shut the lights out on you, so if you wanted to go ahead and do your last call, we can let you go if you need to.
Yeah, the blowers are just down underneath me now, so they're going to charge up here in just a second. But sad day at Assembly Hall. I've never seen.
I hope they don't mess your hair up when they come.
Yeah,
up
it's a lot, right?
It's a
sad
lot of
day
work to get it to look that good.
No other way to say it. Bad basketball, bad from top to bottom, lack of effort, just really sad, and it's just sad. I'll just sum it up that way. I've never been in here and felt like I did today, and I've been coming here since 1985 and watching since 1970s. This was a Big Ten game, and the crowd left with, a lot of people left at halftime, and whether that's right or wrong or you should support or whatever, 2 25-point losses. The program is at a turning point, and I don't know that it can turn in the right direction. This really felt like the beginning of the end. Without trying to pass judgment or call for anything. It just was unbelievable, the atmosphere here, what was sad and demoralizing, and I don't want to feel that much anymore. I want to get back as soon as we possibly can. So thank you guys for putting up with the blowers and everything. Be safe. We'll see you on Friday night.
All right, thanks, Coach. Be safe going home.
Thanks for being here, Coach.
Yeah, quick. Just to circle back, quick look ahead to Ohio State. They are currently 2-3 in conference play, 10-6 overall. After a close loss to Oregon last week, like I said, looks like they are losing at Wisconsin. That would drop them to 2-4. They've had kind of an odd season. Haven't really done much in the Big Ten. They won at Minnesota in double overtime in kind of a wild game, and their other one came at home against Rutgers. But interestingly enough, they beat Texas on a neutral floor to start the season and blew out Kentucky on a neutral floor as well. So they have performed better against the SEC than the Big Ten to this point. Don't totally know what you're going to get with them. Have a number of new faces this year. A few guys back. Bruce Thornton, chief among them, is back, but I think Devin Royal was there a year ago as well. So they've got a few guys back, but also a number of new faces. Diebler, the coach, after taking over partway through last season, they've been about even in terms of KenPom ranking on offense and defense, around 40th in both. So again, I don't know how much at this point a lot of the stats, matchups, numbers, and stuff really matter as you look ahead to IU. They're kind of playing against themselves, it feels like, in a lot of ways at this point. So that'll be Friday. Tip time for that is 8 on Fox. So some combination of us will be back for that one. Tell you what, I might go ahead and do last call, and then we can linger a little bit if we want to, but at least get through the formality of things. And then if you guys want to hang around a little bit, I got a few more minutes and then I got to drop. So Ryan, I'll throw it to you for last call. Just a reminder, everyone, check out our friends at Home Field Apparel. Use the promo code HOME23 to get 15% off your first order at checkout. Also, make sure you go and sign up for our email newsletter at assemblycall.substack.com and or assemblycall.com, and you can subscribe to that. Ryan, final thoughts as we get ready to close things down here.
Yeah, I think just I'm going to end it the way I started it, and we talked about before the season we were going to remain positive, and we discussed the coaching situation at the end of the year. But we can't be blind, and we can't, not address what is right and right in front of and plain view for everybody. Back-to-back 25-point losses that, quite frankly, were entirely predictable, and that's the sad part. This isn't a fluke. You went into Iowa expecting to get your butt kicked. You came home against Illinois expecting to get your butt kicked. And expecting to get your butt kicked at Assembly Hall should be a dividing line. And I'll say what I said earlier is Mike Woodson was brought to Indiana to win championships, to win a championship at least. And at some point, you are your results. And the results have not been good. And they are not at a championship quality. And he was not brought here to be better than Archie Miller. He was not brought here to make the NCAA tournament. He was brought here to win a championship. That is the expectation of Indiana, of the athletic department, and of the fans. And at some point, as I said earlier, if you aspire to championships, you have to act like a championship program and do things that championship programs do. You have the resources of a championship program. Now you have to act like it. And if you don't, and if it is not a championship level program, you need to make changes. And Indiana is at, as Coach said, it's a crossroads right now. And I fully expect nothing will change before the end of the season. But at the same time, this is obvious to everybody watching it, not just Indiana fans. And we know where this is going. And it feels like a march to the inevitable at this point. And people can be angry at us for talking about that all they want. But it is absolutely unacceptable what has happened on the floor at Indiana over the past few seasons, and particularly this year. You cannot do the things that this program is doing with the resources that are poured into it and expect people to accept it. You talk about championships, that's the expectation. And this program is so far from that right now. It's sad. And we got on here without anger, but with sadness. And so the last thing I'll say is there is time left in this season for these players to gather together and make something of it. but there is a hard ceiling on what can be produced under this group. And I'm not just talking about the coaching staff. I'm talking about the athletic department, whatever. This collection that is leading the way for Indiana basketball, there's a hard ceiling on it, and it's far below a championship. And again, at some point, everyone has to get on the same page and decide that's unacceptable.
Yeah, for me, my head kind of goes in a lot of different ways. So I'm going to a few things in no particular order. Went back recently and kind of wrote out in the Woodson era at least, every game against Big Ten teams or other power conference teams. I threw Gonzaga in there as well. And so at this point in total, in those games, there have been 90 total games in that, and IU has lost by more than at least 10 points in 26 of them. So 29% basically. This year's been somewhat odd. They've played 11 games like that. They've won 5 by double digits. They've lost 5 by double digits, and the other one was the Penn State game. So a little bit more skewed this year really on both ends. But I think what you look at is these margins of victory, like the average margin of defeat in Big Ten losses in this time is almost 12 points. I mean, that's over 35 Big Ten losses. The average is 11.8 points. Like, it's just too often of not being competitive. And in situations like this, when you really needed a win to come back and right the ship and kind of prove, hey, that Iowa game, things got away from us. That was an anomaly. And instead it that looks like the reality of the situation. Same data might give some optimism for Friday's game at Ohio State, as that is a team that Woodson is 4-1 against. So do with that what you will. And I look at the comments. I mentioned this before, and thanks to producer Eddie for putting this in the chat. Anthony Leal, I don't think we carry on like normal. Things need to be addressed with each other. We have to lock in and understand how embarrassing this is. I think, the first sentence of that is the most important. To carry on and to not make changes within the season in terms of how they're approaching these games, whatever the case may be, whether it's conditioning, whether it's when they do shoot around, whether it's how they practice, the things they practice, whatever that may be, they got to make some changes because what's happening now is not working. And his comment there is an acknowledgement of that. Like, you can't carry on and keep doing the same things that you're doing given the results that have been had. And that's not a comment on go get rid of the coach. I think it's how this staff and this group needs to approach things and how they turn around, how the players need to approach things. And I hope that, what he brings up is something that they're able to take to heart and turns into a turning point for the season. But doing things differently becomes abundantly important after, the way these last couple games in particular have gone. And so you got a fairly quick turnaround and head to Columbus on Friday to be able to take that. And the other thing, man, there was an image at one point, I think it was in the second half. It just so happened, I think they were kind of showing Calbert Chaney, or maybe they were coming back from a thing. But it's Calbert Chaney sitting next to Jordan Hulls. And I'm just like, man, what is running through their head as they're watching this? What is running through their head as they're seeing players get booed? What is running through their head when they hear the chants of the coach and all that stuff? Like, man, there's two guys who just lived and died IU basketball, sitting through that and trying to figure out, I'm sure, what they can do and how they can be part of making a change. But man, it was a disheartening image on a disheartening night all around to see those two guys, those two legends of the program, sitting there trying to, I think, process what they were seeing. I think somebody even talked about, Chaney walking off the court, just kind of shaking his head. And so lots of season left, lots of big opportunities, but a lot that needs to change in order to really make the most of those opportunities as we go forward. And so we'll, Friday's game against Ohio State is the first step to see how they respond, and we'll be back to talk about it then. So we're going to go ahead and do the outro here. I think a couple of us may stay around for a couple minutes, talk a little bit more. We'll kind of at least wrap up the formal portion of the show. So that will do it for this episode of the Assembly Call. And if you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/assemblycall. Don't forget to go to substack.assemblycall.com to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for the music you hear on the show. Special thanks to John Ringer of Rig Design for designing our logo. And thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU Hoops with you again on Friday night. And until then,
take it from me, Max Bielfeldt. Keep your calves flexed, your elbows in, and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
Here I come. This is done, Sony.
That's it. We're done. No more questions.
and special thanks to producer Eddie, who is not at home doing the producing from a hotel room. So I really was not trying to make him feel bad when I joked that I might have to hum the instrumental part of something. So I felt bad about that. But no, I really appreciate everything he's done and for being here.
This is better. It's mountain time. We're on mountain time now. So look, it's early in the evening. I'm good.
It should be. I think it should be stated. It's possible this was like the worst game in the history of our show, and producer Eddie is here from a hotel. The best game in the history of our show might be the watch shot, and Ryan could not call in from a hotel. Well, so I just think.
I think it's worth noting our setup was a little different back then, a little less high tech, and I would have had to talk.
Really just trying to reflect on better days, Ryan. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. I was at the watch shot game, so that makes. Are we just trying to compare Ryan?
I will say, I did listen to that show though. I want credit for that.
Wow.
And it was just Jared yelling "woo" for like the first 5 minutes.
What else could be said? Honestly,
yeah,
this is true.
Perfect.
This is true. All right. Well, I am gonna drop. I've had enough show. And
I have a few additional thoughts.
So I know you have other thoughts, and you got on. I just figured we could try to wrap up the normal structure of the show and leave you to explore the studio space thereafter. So I will let you two. Do that, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Little AC After Dark. We haven't done AC After Dark in a while.
Oh, look out! All right, I'll talk to you guys.
Let's play the AC After Dark song.
I'll talk to you guys Friday.
All right. See you, Andy. Hang on. Let me pull this up. Eddie, I don't think I ever sent you this one.
I think I have it. I just have to dig it.
Here we go. Tell me if you can hear this. Is it playing?
No.
Oh, damn it.
All that build up.
Yeah, I know. Hold on.
All that build up.
I know. Oh man, I wonder why it wasn't playing.
I've got it. Ready?
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay, go. Yeah, there it is.
When the show is over, but there's more to be said. Pour yourself a drink now. Put the kiddies to bed. It's time to cut loose. No more censored remarks. So cozy up, chat mob. It's time for AC After Dark.
I might even kiss a lot of guys. I don't know. These are all rumors. I don't know what's true and what's not. Turn your butt cheeks on. Assembly Call co-host arrested.
Oh boy, Bob Thompson, just some incredible work. Incredible work from Bob.
We've had that song for years now, and it's every time still.
It's good. I know we're not doing AC radio right now, so we don't get to have as many of the AC After Darks. Man. So I want to go back to something you said, Ryan, earlier, because you talked about how, we were going to be positive. And that might be a word that we used. Obviously we said what we said in February of last year, spent a lot of time reflecting on that, talking about in the offseason how we didn't want to go down that road of making a statement about the coach and piling on the negativity during the season. And so
we wanted to do post-game shows and talk about games.
Yes. And maybe we use the word positive, but I think really what we meant is we wanted to be supportive but candid, right? Like, okay, we don't need to pile on the negativity, but we have to be honest in what we're seeing and candid in assessing the basketball that we're seeing. And look, there's just, and I think the other word is open-minded, right? So, okay, some people thought that Mike Woodson shouldn't have been given a year 4. He was given year 4. let's give him the full season and let's see what happens. And let's stay open-minded to the results. You know, the Bahamas didn't go great, but let's stay open-minded to what could happen in Big Ten play. You know, you go get the win at Penn State, like, hey, maybe this thing is turning around a little bit. And then, you know, we get smacked in the face with the loss to Iowa and this loss. And so I think anybody who's trying to look at this candidly and objectively and even open-mindedly and even trying to find reasons to feel good, it's very hard to find those reasons to feel good. And, you know, it really, you know, my thoughts on just, you know, what I watched in this game, I just happened to come across this tweet from friend of the show, Sam Vecini, and he's got this 20-second video, which is kind of focused on Umar Ballo. And it's basically 20 seconds of him loafing up the court, standing around in the half court, not really chasing after a rebound. And Sam's comment is, I mean, what in the world is this, Indiana, particularly Umar Ballo? What in the world? This is gross effort. This is the kind of effort where you have to sit Ballo the rest of the game, I think. You can't let that kind of effort go without serious accountability in terms of PT. And it was in the first half when it was 48-22. And then, you know, you look at the final numbers, Umar Ballo finishes with 16 points, 15 rebounds, and plays 34 minutes.
Yep.
Now, part of that obviously is you don't have Malik Renew, and so Umar Ballo has to play more minutes.
Let's be real, Jared. Let's be real. Wouldn't have made a difference.
Oh, I don't think it makes a difference in winning and losing the game. But
no. I mean, I don't think.
And the accountability. Oh, no, totally.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, Sam makes a really good point. You know, which is it doesn't feel like there is accountability for those types of lapses. Now we've seen, you know, Mackenzie Mbako has struggled and he's been benched, and you know there have been certain
performance based more than I think effort based.
Yes, but I think that, you know, what Sam is getting at gets to the fundamental issues here. Like I don't, you know, like we've talked about, you know, the 3-point rate and scheme and all this stuff, and there obviously are things there around the margin that I think would give us a little more offensive efficiency, give us a little more defensive efficiency. But I just think what we're watching is a team and a program that just feels broken at its core. You know, when you can have stretches of play like that, where an entire first half can go, where it's just possession after possession, where it feels like you're not fighting and you have no way to break out of that in the moment, that's a sign of a deeper issue than, you know, some of the things we discuss. And I think the things that we discuss are all valid basketball things, and they're interesting things to discuss. And I think, again, they could improve things around the margins. But when you see what happened at Iowa, and especially when you see what happened tonight in the first half, none of those things are changing it. It's fundamental. Like this guy here isn't giving the kind of effort, the kind of fight that you need to see. What are you going to do about it? And too often when that stuff happens, it just feels like we're resigned to our fate. And
yeah, I think
that's leadership.
Something worth noting, Jared, too, is that Sam Vecini was one of the people trying to convince people that Mike Woodson could work out in the very beginning. He was one of the voices saying, like, hey, people ripping this, like Mike Woodson was good at this and good. You know, I don't remember specifically what it was, but he was one of the few people nationally who was pretty positive on the hire. And so for him to say that, it's not like this is a guy who's always ripped Woodson and, you know, but I think that that's a huge thing. And I think we talked about it during the show, and I know you couldn't be on until a little bit later, but we talked about the fact that there is no accountability from the bottom up in this program. It doesn't seem like, I mean, Cannon Carlisle, Mackenzie Mbako have been playing terribly for multiple games right now. They're both talented players who are in slumps. They're getting the exact same amount of chances no matter how they play and no matter the mistakes they make. They are not being coached out of those mistakes, and because they're clearly not, because it's happening. And maybe they're telling them not to, you know, the coaches are telling them, don't do this, don't do that, but it's not translating. And so at some point you have to use the bench as the motivator. And that is not a part of this program. And it has not been consistently, I'll say that, consistently for years. And I said earlier that finances probably play a role, because if you're paying a lot of money for a player, that player is going to play. You're not going to give someone, and I'm just throwing a number out, I don't know that like what the numbers are for each guy, but you're not going to give somebody $500,000 to sit on the bench and get 3 minutes a game. You're not going to do that because there are
okay. But
let me finish real quick.
Fine.
because there are people who gave that money to the program and want to see the results. Now, I'm not saying that's the way it should be. I think if somebody is playing poorly, they should be benched. I'm talking about the reality of probably where the coach's head is at, is that. And I'm not saying that's okay. And I don't think that's acceptable. And I think if $1 million player is playing like garbage and not giving effort, put him on the bench. That is what I would do. And you have other people. I know Malik Renew's out, but if Umar Ballo is not going to run up and down that floor, not going to give effort for all 40 minutes of the game, he needs to be on the bench. And a message needs to be sent, because that message being sent doesn't just go to Umar Ballo. It goes to the rest of the team as well, that this is not acceptable. You are setting a standard and holding players accountable. Just like, quite frankly, the athletic department should hold coaches accountable for their actions and what they do and how they perform, whether it's the tennis coach or the basketball coach or the assistant coaches. There is a standard that needs to be set at Indiana that is higher than what we have gotten for years. And at some point, someone needs to step up and start doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds crazy to say that, especially when you don't have a Malik Renew, but sometimes you have to lose a battle to win a war. And sometimes you have to send a message. And, and look, we just saw at Tennessee, Rick Barnes, they've got a transfer named Chaz Lanier who hasn't been playing well. And he said in his press conference, he said, like, if you're not doing what you're being paid to do, I'm going to sit you over there on the bench. And it made a lot of headlines, but it's true.
Agreed.
It really is. Yeah. And look, is it possible, like you mentioned, Kanan Carlisle and Mackenzie Mbako, is it possible that, Gabe Cup's being hurt, not having Ja'Kai Newton, not having options? Yeah, you could use that as a little bit of an excuse. But again, at some point, it feels like there just has to be a standard that is going to be adhered to, or like you've got to have, what are the hills that you're going to die on? And I know it's kind of the people make fun of the old IU fans for saying, like, well, just play the walk-ons. And it's not that necessarily.
I'd rather watch the walk-ons.
The guys. Yeah, it's don't reward people with playing time that aren't giving you the minimum, which is, again, he goes out and his numbers look fine. But certainly what I watched in the first half and that little clip, and I'm not saying it was only him. I mean, you're not going to be down by 28 points at home because one guy is dogging it a little bit. But I just think that example is really illustrative of what we've been seeing. And I feel like that's why things are so up and down, because it's like we can play hard and committed and be competitive sometimes, but we don't have to do it all the time. And sometimes we get our butts kicked and, oh, well, we're just kind of not going to fight anymore. It's just that's very sad and depressing basketball to watch. And it just feels like Groundhog's Day.
And I know that this is like such a cliche thing to say, so I apologize. But I would rather watch the walk-ons dive on the floor than watch Umar Ballo put in no effort. I 1,000% was. The result's going to be a 25 to 30 point loss either way. I'd rather watch those guys go out there and put in the effort.
And you know what?
And you know what? Also appreciate the fact that they're wearing that jersey and what it means. Because if you're loafing up and down the court, you don't.
Yeah, and it's not okay. And that is not an anti-Umar Ballo stance or an anti-Mackenzie Mbako. It's hoping, because you see what that guy can do when he plays hard. Like, I thought a little bit of watching the second half, he was attacking rebounds. He's, going and playing a little bit better. Like, I didn't watch the final 12 minutes. I saw the first 8. We made a little bit of a comeback. But it's wanting the players to be coached and held accountable so they can be their best selves. That's the thing. And that's why seeing something like that would be exciting. It's not because, I don't like this guy, punish him over on the bench. It's, let's put these guys in the best position to succeed. And part of that is making sure they understand what the minimum effort level is that's acceptable. And that's not happening. That's where it just feels like things are so fundamentally broken. And so, like, I have no idea what's going to happen with the coach of Indiana. Someone texted me, is Mike Woodson going to finish the season? I don't know. And I honestly, I don't even really have an opinion on it. I don't. And so I almost think it's beyond discussing. I mean, he's the coach for this year. Let's see, I want to see this team get better and play up to its capabilities. The whole idea of rooting for losses and all that stuff, I think it's ludicrous. I don't want I don't root for points to be right if they're negative. I want to be proven wrong and see things get better. Like that kind of basketball on the floor of Assembly Hall, like that just should never happen. That sullies the reputation of a great arena that has seen so many guys fight and scratch and claw. So I never want to see that out there. I hope the next game is way better. So I kind of think those discussions are a little bit beside the point at this point.
Yeah. It is. I mean, truly it is. You have to acknowledge that it exists, but having a full-throated hour-long discussion on it is pointless at this point until somebody makes the right call, and one way or the other, One thing I was going to say, Jared, is when you're recruiting players, whether transfer portal or whatever, the players you want on your team and that will win you a college basketball, and let's say what it is. Mike Woodson's job is not to produce NBA players. Mike Woodson's job is to win a championship in college basketball. That's the job. And not just Mike Woodson, every college basketball coach. It's great if your guys go on to the NBA. It's great for the program. You're happy for them. You develop them. It's a feather in your cap. But
even beyond winning a championship, just be competitive. Be consistently competitive.
Standard is higher than that. Let's be real. The standard is higher than that. But it should be at least.
Let's at least reach the first checkpoint along.
Well, no, but I mean, given the resources, Jared, that's what it should be. And so,
I agree.
But anyway, let me. Ultimately, that's what the job is, though. At the end, you build to get there, but whatever. The players that are going to help you do that are the ones who want to be coached too. And so, coaching those players, it may not always be easy, but it's going to be easier than people who are popping in for a paycheck. And everybody gets paid in college basketball now. I'm not denigrating any of our players. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes right now with them. But when you're recruiting high school players, get the ones who want to be coached and be made better, not the guys who are coming for a pit stop. Get the guys who want to play for Indiana, not only because they're going to get paid, but because they want to play for Indiana. You have to do that. And the problem is losing by 25 and watching the spectacle you watched tonight is why you're not getting high school recruits, because they're not getting coached. They're not getting better. They're getting embarrassed on national television. Nobody wants to be a part of that. It doesn't matter how much they like the coach or how much money you're going to hand them. They don't want that. And nobody wants to be on the losing end of a 25-point game. It doesn't matter who you're playing. You're playing the best team in the country. Nobody wants to be on television getting embarrassed. And so games like this that are happening all too often are the reason you're not getting high school recruits and having to go into the transfer portal and reset your roster every year. And under Archie, the reason why you weren't getting high school recruits was because his system didn't fit the players that were coming out at the time. His system was not one that looked like, hey, these players are getting better offensively. They might get a little better defensively, but they're not going to get better offensively under you. High school kids, they want to get better. And so the big part of this is show that you're coaching these guys, like at the baseline. And if you don't have guys who are coachable, sit them down, because in the long run, you'll be better for it, because you'll be showing, hey, this guy came here. We gave him a lot of money. He didn't want to be coached. He didn't want to get better. This guy improved all season long because he took coaching and got better. That will at least show that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And so, I'm not pointing that finger at anybody on the team. I'm not pointing at anybody on the bench that needs to play more. It's just in general, like, you need guys who want to be coached, and then you need to coach them. And if you're not coaching them, and if they're not willing to be coached, it's a recipe for disaster. And that's what the program feels like it's built on right now.
Yeah. No, it's well said. I don't know, man. I've just never felt this way about the program as I do right now.
Worst two-game stretch I can remember, man. Worst two-game stretch I can remember.
It is, and I mean, the first two seasons under Woody were not perfect by any means. And we talked about it, and there were ups and there were downs. But man, there were some players who got better. There were some big wins. It felt like there was more fight, especially that first year, when we really defended. It felt like maybe, and I don't know, I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. It felt like the second year there were a few more games where it's like, wow, boy, we really just got our butts kicked tonight.
Yeah.
And then, again, last year you kind of chalk it up to, okay, well, there's no guards and yada, yada.
Lost TJP, like all that. Yeah.
Yeah. But man, this year, I mean, it's just so strange, to be able to, it's weird to have a program that can take care of business against, the teams that it's clearly better than, right? That it has more talent than, that it's ranked higher than in all the metrics. We take care of business against those. Whereas, last year it felt like we were more likely to kind of stub our toe or even play worse. But then against anybody that's good and that can put on a run, or like you guys said on the last show, kind of punch us in the face, we just wilt.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's not even so much like, the effort. And I don't, really, I don't like calling guys out individually. And so
no,
it's not just Umar Ballo. I think, for most guys you've seen, even from at times, like a guy like Miles Rice, who I think has really, for the most part, fought hard and done the right things. There have been stretches where it's looked like he's a little bit out of it on the court. And I don't always think it's because guys go out there and don't want to do the right things. I think athletes want to go out there and compete and win. Like that's your natural inclination. And I don't think too many guys get to this point without having that. But guys also need coaching to let them know when they're not up to that level and to give them the confidence to go out there and do it. Galen talks about this a lot on Crimson Cast, and he talks about it a lot in the context of football, where, to compete and win in football, you've got to have a collective confidence and belief in what you're doing, to where even if you're going up against someone that might be a little bit more physically powerful than you are, you can help make up for that because you believe in what you're doing and you just have this collective will about you and you never stop fighting. And that's what we saw from Indiana football this year, and that's what it really feels like is missing from this group, because Gonzaga, Louisville, Nebraska, Illinois, Iowa, maybe Gonzaga has more talent. I don't know. I'd have to look at all these rosters, but these are not teams that are demonstrably more talented or should be demonstrably better than Indiana. But you put them on the court for 40 minutes and there are just long stretches of the game where it's totally non-competitive.
Yeah.
And that is, that's not, yes, to a certain extent, that's the responsibility of players and leaders. I mean, you're not going to absolve those guys of responsibility, but part of why you might not see their best is because, like, deep down, even you can say what you want in a press conference. You might even be able to say it to each other that you believe. If you don't deep down really believe in what you're doing, it's hard to be fully engaged competitively. And that to me so often seems like what we see out there, which is guys that I don't know. It just looks to me like they want to believe, but don't deep down in their bones believe in what they're being asked to do.
Yeah.
And
you were talking about those first two seasons. I think a lot of people put that on, TJD did X, Y, and Z. And I think that the further we get away from it, a guy who was incredibly valued to the program that I think we never really valued. I mean, we talked about, we didn't value him the way I think we should have, was Race Thompson as well. Those two guys seem to keep everybody in check. And defensively, he was basically the captain. Even when he wasn't on the floor, they played better. And I think that those two leaving at the same time really hurt the program, because I think that was your accountability on the floor for everybody. And I think
Race Thompson is the most underrated player since we've been doing this show.
I would agree 100%.
He really is.
100%.
I really firmly believe that. And I've believed that more with hindsight.
And we talked about that at the time, that like, that's a guy who can have a 0 across the board stat line and have a great impact on a game. Like, and I think that one year I said, and I always come back to this, but one year I did say, I said, Trace Jackson Davis is the best player on the team. Race Thompson is the most important. And you gave me a ton of crap for that. And a few months later, you were like, yeah, you were right. And and it was just like, because the thing was, I liked,
it's a semantic argument, but it's the two of them together,
It really was. It was.
Yeah.
I mean, and of course you couldn't have one without the other either and have it be successful. So it was, you're right. It is a semantic argument, but I just thought that he did so much inside and out that help that team. And again, it just felt like there was accountability on the floor at all times with those guys. And to be fair, they stuck around 4 years. I mean, Race was like 6. I mean, you know, like they stuck around a long time. They were a veteran presence. They were respected because they'd been there for so long. They'd been there through tough times with the previous staff. They were there with this current staff. Like, they were just guys who you could rely on to keep things in check. Even in losses, you felt like they were always someone you could rely on.
And they trusted each other. You know,
Yes.
that's the other thing. I think accountability is a big part of the issue, but I also think just trust. Like, that trust is missing in this program. Fans don't trust the coaches. Coaches don't trust the fans. You know, but then even when you get into it, I don't know. I think the players like each other. I don't know that the players trust each other. You know, trust in basketball is built over, you know, years of playing together. You know, and look, a lot of programs across the country are dealing with that because rosters are so much more transient now. But if you're dealing with, you know, rosters with a lot of new guys, but you also have returnees that may not fully trust what they're being asked to do, like, it's hard to win basketball games against good teams like that. You can out-talent teams that you're better than, and Indiana has been able to do that. And I don't think that's like a backhanded compliment. Like, I actually think Indiana's ability this year to take care of business is something they should be lauded for. Like, that has been the positive this year. They've taken care of business in games that they should. And there's something about coaching and leadership and talent that leads you to be able to do that. But then to go from there to just the complete butt kickings in these other games, you know, that's where trust really comes out. Is we're smacked in the mouth. We're down. Things aren't going well. What is the thing together on the court that we can do, that we can rally around? You know, I mean, you think back to that game against Michigan, Race Thompson's senior year, you know, when Michigan's coming back and Race just like makes these defensive plays to help save that game for Indiana. Trace makes plays. I think Jalen hit a 3. Like, there was, you know, something about that team that in some of those moments, they had built some level of trust together to be able to do that. And I think Trace and Race were the foundation of that. And without that, you know, you haven't been able to get it from a guy like Trey Galloway. Anthony Leal obviously doesn't really play enough to be able to do that, and isn't probably good, you know, may not be quite talented.
Has been around.
Enough.
I mean, yeah, he doesn't play enough. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, Trace and Race were like main guys. And so that's, you know, so these things are missing, and you're not going to get that when you're playing again. You know, look, we've talked about our misgivings with Indiana's offensive defensive system for a while. So there's just gaps and there's holes in it that coaches have been able to exploit. Players know that. But also when rosters aren't together, you just don't build that. And so I think Indiana's just inability to develop any of that has just, you know, and you know, that's where you think about that, you know, Trace's senior year. That team had some of that trust. They had the talent, right? You got 2 draft picks. You know, and I think you've always said, like, you know, we had a debate about whether that season was successful or not. I said it was a success because, you know, we're 2nd or 3rd in the Big Ten. We get a 4 seed. Like, that was a good season, especially given the recent history of Indiana basketball. But to your point, that's where I think some of the offensive and defensive system issues kind of held that team back because they could have been better. You know, I think these last 2 seasons, I do think, again, that could have made a difference around the margin. But I think the reason why we didn't sniff the in-state tournament last year, we're not sniffing it this year. Last year, talent was part of the problem, but also just that foundation that you had with Trace and Race is gone and just hasn't been rebuilt.
It's a house built on sand, man. Like, it just is. And it's like when one thing goes wrong, it just sinks. And yeah, I like, where do we go from here? We play Ohio State on Friday.
Bed.
Yeah, well, yes, that. Well, you do. I'm gonna be up for a little bit. Burning incense, hoping that Roki Sasaki picks the Padres, which I don't think he's going to. But yeah, I think that it's just where do you go from here? You go to the next game, and if you're a fan, maybe you're tired of watching this. I would urge you to, if it's not giving you joy and you're not having a good time, tune out. That's bad for us because we like it when you guys are all here. Tonight's audience has been unbelievable. But at the same time, like, this is supposed to be fun, and sometimes it isn't. And if it gets to the point where it isn't for you, I urge you just to go do something else with your time. And I'm not telling you you're a bad fan by doing that. I'm saying, like, legitimately take a break. But we'll be here and we'll be talking about it, and we'll try and give you a good therapy session, good or bad, and celebrate with you if you don't win, and give you a good therapy session if it's bad. But it's tough, man. This is a tough place to be, and it's gonna, whatever happens at the end of this year, they're either gonna make a phenomenal run and turn it all the way around, and it's gonna be amazing, or we're gonna have excitement for what's next, I think. So we'll see. But yeah, it's a weird place to be. I don't know what to do now. It's
just watch. I mean, I will say I'm glad that we made the commitment to not be as negative, and look, I've stayed off Twitter a lot, and just there have been thoughts that have run through my head, and I just don't post them now because I don't think it does a whole lot of positive to just pile on some of that stuff. If you don't have something,
there's very little value in it.
Yeah. Or basketball related to say now, presenting some statistics that are just negative statistics, but that is reasonable analysis. That's not being negative. That's just being
honest
or analyzing the team. And so I think and I don't even say this necessarily like, oh, we've got to protect, the players and all that stuff. Honestly, like, protect yourself and your love of Indiana basketball. And it doesn't really make you feel better to like be negative on a place like Twitter or any place like that. I'm with you, Ryan. Take a step away for a little while. Like, honestly, it's been a little bit freeing for me to not be on every show, and to kind of put the focus on, hey, I'm not going to sacrifice time with my family to hop on here and just be around a little bit less. It stings because I miss being on it with you guys. But I didn't handle last season very well, like mentally and emotionally. And I think this season,
I think a lot of people didn't. A lot of people didn't. We all did. We had to pull back the curtain. We had a big meeting about it. It was not fun. It got real negative and angry. And I tend to think a lot of the voices we were hearing that were negative were coming from a very small percentage of people, because the most people I would actually talk to in person or hear from other than that were like, no, you guys keep doing what you do. And it was tough, guys. It really was. It weighed on us all, I think, a lot, what happened last year.
But that's the thing is, people probably aren't that interested in Woe Is Us stuff because we
not at all. Not at all.
But that's the point is, we have a choice. You have a choice. And so I think, sometimes because Indiana basketball is special to a lot of people, and it's been a source of joy and entertainment for a lot of people. But watching that tonight, like, that's just, there's something about it that it almost like takes something that's part of your soul and wads it up and throws it into a wastebasket, and it's like you're watching this happen in real time, and like you can have an emotional reaction to that. So, you got to deal with that in the best way possible. But I do think, I want the best for the players. I mean, I think I do think these guys genuinely want to do the right thing, even after a game like today where you see it not go well. And so I do think there's something to, trying to keep some of the some of the abject negativity off of, some of the public places. I think it can only not harm more, I suppose.
Well,
but more than that, I think it actually helps each of us as fans to just, like you said, you can take a little break from it, turn away for a little while, and just, I guess, remember that you kind of have a choice. And if this isn't the kind of basketball that you want to watch, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. It's late, but
it's allowed.
Someone just tweeted me a picture of John Calipari.
Yeah,
time for Cal.
I pass.
What is going on?
I pass.
What is going on?
Another
I don't know, man.
Failed NBA coach sounds great.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Gosh, that first half was hard to watch.
It really was, man. I mean, down 30. It was 52-22 at one point with like a couple minutes left. Like, oof. That was bad.
Man. Hard to watch. Hard to watch.
You need to go to bed, and I need to.
I know. I'm not even forming coherent thoughts anymore.
2 hours in, they've had enough show.
They've had enough show.
Definitely. Thanks,
Everybody's had enough show. Thanks, Eddie, for being here. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We'll be back soon.
We'll get through it together, everybody.
We will. We will get through it together. That's right. That is how this works.